The suburbs of South London in the 1960s were a monochrome sprawl, a landscape of conformity David Jones desperately wanted to escape. For him, a normal life wasn't a comfort, it was a terrifying sentence. Haunted by a family history of mental illness that claimed his beloved half-brother Terry, David saw the conventional path not as stability, but as a slow fade into the same gray obscurity. His ambition wasn't just a youthful desire for fame, it was a preemptive strike against the shadows in his own mind, a fight for psychological survival. He had to become someone else, anyone else, to avoid becoming no one at all. This fear wasn't a simple insecurity. It was the engine of his entire existence, the desperate, creative force that would soon ignite a cultural revolution. He wasn't running towards the spotlight, he was running from the darkness. To protect the fragile man, a celestial messiah was born. The creation of Ziggy Stardust wasn't just a clever marketing gimmick. It was a profound psychological defense mechanism. David constructed an alter ego so charismatic, so alien and captivating, that the anxious young man behind the lightning bolt makeup could recede into the shadows, shielded from the pressures of stardom. Ziggy was the armor. But as the phenomenon exploded, the armor began to fuse with the skin beneath. On stage and off, the line between David Jones and Ziggy Stardust blurred into a dangerous electric haze. The mask was so effective that he started to forget the face it was hiding, losing himself inside his own brilliant creation. The pressure of inhabiting this otherworldly being day and night began to take its toll, pulling him closer to the very edge he'd created Ziggy to escape. The abyss was waiting in Los Angeles. The sunny optimism of California was, for Bowie, a cold, paranoid nightmare. This was the era of the thin white dude, a persona far more sinister than Ziggy. He was an emotional Aryan, an aristocrat of decay, fueled by cocaine, milk, and red peppers. The visuals from this period are stark and fragmented, mirroring a mind coming apart at the seams. The Duke was the final stage of the split, where the characters had consumed their creator. He was a hollowed-out man, haunted by occult fears and losing his grip on time and reality, later admitting he could barely recall the recording of the masterful Station to Station. The man who had built personas to save himself was now being devoured by them, a ghost in his own life story. Salvation came not in a flash of light, but in the stark, divided city of Berlin. His move in 1976 was a deliberate act of self-exorcism, a conscious retreat from the madness of LA. Berlin was a city scarred by history, a place where he could become anonymous again. Riding his bicycle through the bleak streets of Schöneberg, he began the painful process of shedding his famous skins. He was killing his creations, Ziggy, the Duke, to save David Jones. This was not a retreat from music, but a dive into its very core, collaborating with Brian Eno to create the stark, experimental soundscapes of the Berlin Trilogy. It was a profound artistic purge that mirrored his personal one, a rebirth in the shadow of the wall that allowed him to find his own face again. In his final years, he became the elder statesman of reinvention, a man who no longer needed to hide behind characters because he had finally integrated them all. He was David Jones, but he was also Ziggy, the Duke, and every other phantom he had ever conjured. They were no longer masks, but facets of a complex, fully realized identity. The creation of his final album, Black Star, released just 2 days before his death, was the ultimate act of psychological mastery. Knowing his time was limited, he transformed his own mortality into a final, deliberate, and breathtaking work of art. It was his last and greatest reinvention, controlling his own narrative until the very end, turning his departure into a planned creative event. He had made his death, like his life, a masterpiece.